All right, welcome everybody to another exciting edition of Pedal to the Metal Theater. I am your host, Eddie Monster. If you're just joining us for the first time ever, welcome. This is a show where we take rock and heavy metal related movies and we review them. That's right, simple as that. If you want to follow the show, you can do so by clicking on any of the links in the description below. That's right, we're on everything. Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky, Threads, you name it, we're there. Also, the YouTube page is active and going, so make sure you stay up to date with everything that we're doing on there, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Every subscribe we get is greatly, greatly appreciated. The film we're reviewing for today is one that I hadn't planned on doing yet. I was going to do this film eventually, but I hadn't planned on it, and some unfortunate news came across all of our radars, actually, to be perfectly honest. I thought it was a joke at first. I was like, okay, it's April Fool's Day, I get it, ha ha ha, you know what I mean? I'm looking at my Facebook feed, and it's saying that Val Kilmer had passed away, and I was like, that's impossible. I just saw the man. He had beaten cancer. He'd finally, he'd wore the Batman mask again, in that video. And it's like, no way. I go online. It's literally everywhere. Everywhere. Reputable sources, everything. And I go, oh, this is real. Like, wow. And for those of you who don't know Val Kilmer, he was such an amazing actor. He was just a cut above the rest. I mean, I don't care what movie you want to look at, you know what I mean? Whether, the first film I ever watched him in, which was Top Secret, 1984. Anybody? Hopefully. And then there was Top Gun, obviously, when he played the Iceman. And, dude, he was a badass. He perfectly played a dude that was cocky, arrogant, everything to a T, just that guy you just love to hate. You know what I mean? Even though he's that fucking good. You know what I'm saying? And then you go on with all the other films that, Val Kilmer had been a part of, and he'd been part of so many. I mean, one of my favorites that I used to watch with my father was always Tombstone. That was one of my father's favorite films. And Val Kilmer just absolutely knocked that movie out of the fucking park. I mean, playing Doc Holliday, he brought a new just way of playing him. It was unreal, and nobody will ever beat Doc Holliday, in my opinion, like Val Kilmer. Okay, so I decided that we were going to check out The Doors because it stars Val Kilmer, and I wanted to pay tribute to Val Kilmer, who is one of the most excellent actors to come out of the 1980s. And I'm going to bring up a point when we get to it, but right now let's check out the trailer. This is The Doors.
Is everybody in? Is everybody in? The ceremony is about to begin.
Bobby Krieger, guitar player.
John Densmore, percussionist, 22 years old. Far out.
Pamela Morrison, ornament.
Raymond Daniel Manzarek, 1-2-12-39, musician.
Name, occupation.
Jim.
On a day, you know the day destroys the night. Night divides the
Sides are
day.
being chosen. The planet is screaming for change, Morrison. We gotta make the myths.
The Indians say the first shaman invented sex.
Break on through to the other.
They call him the one who makes you crazy.
I'm the Lizard King. I can do anything.
Jim Morrison, the god of rock.
The guys at Network have told us that they have a little problem with the lyric, girl, we couldn't get much higher. They asked if you could say instead, girl, we can't get much better. Can you dig that?
Girl, we couldn't get much higher.
love it when you sing to me.
I'm the poet and you're my muse.
Do you hear them out there? It's you they want now. You ever tried drinking blood?
Mr. Morrison, you've gone too far.
You're a poet, not a rock star.
What you gonna do for Act 3?
Go on, kill me. Come on, give me some death.
Let's just say I was testing the bounds of reality.
All right, so as I said, we're checking out The Doors, which was released in 1991. It was directed by Oliver Stone, and it features quite the cast. Now, remember, the last film we did for Pedal to the Metal Theater was Singles. And I remember I had told you guys that this was the young guns of the 90s that were in Singles. So, with that being said, take this into consideration and say that this was the guys that were no longer the young guns. They were now veterans. They were finally veterans on the scene. They had gone through the 1980s, and this was their time to shine as the premier actors, getting all the roles, so on and so forth. So again, Val Kilmer, he stars as Jim Morrison. Kyle MacLachlan, you guys may remember from Twin Peaks. A lot of you Twin Peaks fans out there. He plays Ray Manzarek. Frank Whaley plays Robbie Krieger. Kevin Dillon plays John Densmore. Michael Wincott, you guys may or may not remember him. Most recently he was in Nope, but he's most famous for being the villain in The Crow. That was one of his big movies. He plays Paul Rothchild, who was the world-famous producer for The Doors. Michael Madsen plays Tom Baker. Kathleen Quinlan plays one of his girlfriends in Patricia Keneally. And then Meg Ryan plays his main squeeze, Pamela Corson. So there you go. And the film basically follows the Doors from their humble beginnings in Los Angeles after Val had quit film school, all the way up to his untimely demise, so to speak, right? Now, there's a lot of criticisms that went into this film, but let's look at the things that are unique about the film. And one of those is the fact that Val Kilmer sounds and looks like Jim fucking Morrison. It's unreal. It's unbelievable. There was a story that went around as to how he was able to snag the role of Jim Morrison, and that was that he had kind of set up a karaoke thing, and he told the director, if I don't sound like Jim Morrison, then you don't have to hire me, because, funny enough, one of the people considered for the role of Jim Morrison was Ian Astbury, who you guys may or may not know. He is the singer of The Cult, which was a 1980s band. And he was sort of, I like to call him the Jim Morrison of the 80s, much like Glenn Danzig is the evil Elvis. Yeah, you get it. Anyways, moving on. So, yeah, he was able to just nail the role. And one of the fun facts about this film is that if you take a listen, anything that is a close-up, okay, of Val Kilmer, that is Val Kilmer singing. Anything that's further away and he's sort of out of shot, or maybe he's too far in the shot, that's actually Jim Morrison. So that's one of the fun facts for you guys to know out there about that. But yeah, this film has a little bit of controversy to it, only because Oliver Stone was kind of a controversial director to begin with. He was one of those guys that sort of had an agenda, I want to say, with every film he kind of makes. There's always some sort of agenda, and he always twists things to look the way he wants them to look in sort of a way. And he's one of those guys who will try to get anything done by any means possible. I mean, if you watch the documentary on Platoon, you'll easily see what he put those guys through. You know what I mean? He made his own actors go through boot camp, like actual fucking boot camp in the middle of a fucking jungle and shit. Yeah, I mean, it's no joke. So Oliver Stone has quite the reputation in the business, and quite frankly, the Doors themselves may have helped with a lot of the facts and things and this and that, but even they felt a little betrayed by Oliver Stone, saying that it's not the worst depiction of the Doors, basically, is what they said. It could have been worse. At least it wasn't that bad, is basically how the Doors felt about this film when it was released. They just, and I have to agree with them, one of the things is they made Jim Morrison basically just look like a drugged out maniac, right? Like there was no real sense to what he was doing. There was no real method to his madness. They had this theme where he was it almost seemed like he was chasing these Native Americans, right, that you would constantly see flashed in the screen, like only he could see them. And I know there was one throughout the film that represented death, basically. And then finally, you know, he sees that person at the end of the film. But it made Jim look like he was just arrogant, that he was just a runaway rich kid sort of thing who just liked to get fucked up and do stupid shit. That's my opinion, right? There was no real emphasis on his genius, right? And how he was just so poetically brilliant. I mean, they touch upon it. They definitely do. They touch upon it. But I just feel like it was Oliver Stone's agenda as to how Jim was portrayed on screen. You know what I mean? As kind of a drugged out maniac. That's my opinion, and I know that's how the Doors felt as well. And I have to agree with them after watching the film. As we go through the movie, there's some parts that you end up learning. So I had no idea that Jim didn't write Light My Fire. You know what I mean? Because you almost think that's one of his tracks, and you think, oh, man, pure genius, this and that. But come to find out, Robbie Krieger actually made sure that Oliver Stone put in the film that he, in fact, wrote the song Light My Fire, which could be true. Hey, you know what I mean? And then everything pretty much was pretty accurate throughout the film. I mean, they were kicked off of, not Johnny Carson. It's the Ed Sullivan Show. That's what it is. So, yeah, so that's accurate. There's a lot of things in here that are pretty accurate. One of the things I was confused about was I was always led to believe that Jim didn't have any children. There's one scene where Patricia Keneally, played by Kathleen Quinlan, is basically telling Jim that she's pregnant, and Jim is kind of like, hey, you know, like, I'll pay for an abortion. I believe it's led to believe that she did do that, but there have been people that have come out that have said that they are the illegitimate child of Jim Morrison, or the bastard child, whatever you want to call it. And nobody knows if it's true. DNA tests have never been done. And quite frankly, I believe Jim's brother and sister are still alive. That's another thing they don't touch upon too much, is the relationship between Jim and his parents, or his brother and sister. You kind of led to believe that he's kind of a stray and doesn't want anything to do with them. But in fact, after Pamela died, that's who took over his estate, was his parents. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. The costumes are great. I think the acting is top notch throughout the film. One of the funny things too is Billy Idol was actually supposed to have a bigger role in this film. I believe he had Michael Madsen's role, but they ended up switching because Billy Idol was in a motorcycle accident before the making of the film. So he literally had to take a smaller role as Cat. And whenever you see Billy Idol, he's always sitting. He's always sitting or lying down. That's because his legs are broken, apparently, or something of that nature. So, yeah, he ended up having to take a smaller role, and Michael Madsen moved in that role. And a lot of cool stuff. I mean, like, Crispin Glover was perfect playing as Andy Warhol, because Crispin Glover has always had that kind of little bit of a weirdness to his role, so he was perfect for it. So overall, I'm such a huge fan of this film. Obviously, for certain reasons, it helped educate me in the Doors back in the day, but ultimately because of Val Kilmer. That's the real reason I love this film so much. I know that a bunch of the Doors members do not agree with a lot of this film and the way it came out, but if you ask them, they were even fooled by Val Kilmer. They even believed that Val Kilmer was Jim Morrison. So that's how amazing this film was in the end. But obviously, there's always going to be those disputes. Oh, this isn't right. That isn't right. We see it plenty of times. I mean, every time a film comes out, that's why you always see before the film, right, actually starts it. It says based on a true story or based on real events, because based basically gives them an avenue to kind of be, they have creative freedoms with certain things, because nobody knows the actual full conversation that somebody had. I mean, you don't know word for word verbatim what somebody said in like 1852 or 1700s or 16. You know what I mean? So you always, I mean, you just add. I mean, you get the gist of it and then you go with it. That's why it's based on a true story. Because if it was actually verbatim, real for real, then it would say this film is verbatim, real for real. You know what I mean? And it won't say that. That's why it's based on a true story. Because there's always plenty of things that you can debunk, argue with, like, oh, that doesn't seem right. Maybe I think they got the details a little bit twisted. I don't think that person was really there at the moment. Always. You know what I mean? Always is going to happen. So, yeah, the film right now, it's going for $3.99 if you want to rent it on Prime. That's how I had to watch it. I couldn't find my copy of The Doors. I know I have it on VHS, and I was actually pretty excited. I was like, oh, man, I'm going to watch this on VHS. That's going to be so badass. But, yeah, I couldn't find it, and it is what it is. So I'm going to give the film an A- for a final grade. That's how I've always felt about it. It's great. Check it out. Just for Val Kilmer's performance. R.I.P. Val. We love you. We'll miss you. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time.